Welcome back, everyone, to the Wisdom of Lao Tzu.
Great to be back.
Last time, we really got into the weeds with inner cultivation, didn't we? Exploring how Taoist ideas can help shape our inner world for more peace, more effectiveness.
Laying some important groundwork.
Exactly. And today, we're building on that, but maybe from an unexpected angle. We're diving into Chapter 11 of the Tao Ching.
Chapter 11, a classic.
It really is, and it tackles a core Taoist theme, but with this almost startling simplicity. It's all about the usefulness of nothing.
Sounds paradoxical already.
Right, it totally does. So before we actually jump into the text itself, let's try something quick. Just a little thought exercise for you listening.
Okay.
Think about your calendar, the past week or maybe the week ahead. Whether it's your phone app, your planner, whatever you use, is just packed.
A wall to wall.
Yeah, exactly. Every slot filled. Back-to-back meetings, tasks piling up, errands, maybe squeezing in social stuff.
Sounds familiar for a lot of people.
It really does. And, in our culture, being busy, it's almost like a status symbol, isn't it?
A badge of honor, definitely.
Yeah, like a full schedule somehow equals a full life, a productive life. We get really good at playing, Tetris with our time.
Fitting everything in, no gaps.
Meticulously filling every single moment with something to do, something to achieve, maybe something to consume. We almost pride ourselves on being constantly in motion, always on, always doing.
A hamster wheel effect.
Totally. But here's the question I want you to ask yourself. When was the last time you genuinely had empty space in your day? Not like a scheduled break or a planned meditation slot, but just a blank space, a true moment for nothing.
Unstructured time.
Exactly. A space where maybe a new idea, something totally unexpected could just pop up. Or where you might feel some spontaneous inspiration without forcing it.
It's rare, isn't it?
It feels increasingly rare. We're always chasing this idea of a full life. But what if? What if this constant drive for something, all these tasks, these detailed plans, these nonstop appointments, what if it's actually maybe stifling our creativity?
Or peace of mind.
Yes, or even paradoxically making us less effective in the long run.
That's the kicker.
It is. And this is where Lao Tzu comes in with his, typically profound and often paradoxical wisdom. He really challenges us today to rethink this deep-seated bias we have, to show us that sometimes the most useful thing is the very thing we can't see, the thing we dismiss as nothing.
It's a fundamental shift in perspective.
It really is. So let's dive in.
The original text.
Okay, so to really get started with this deep dive, let's go right to the source. Why don't you read Chapter 11 for us? We're using the DC Lao translation here.
Happy to. It goes like this. 30 spokes share one hub. It is the space where there is nothing that provides the usefulness of the cart. Clay is fired to make a pot. It is the space where there is nothing that provides the usefulness of the pot. Doors and windows are cut out to make a room. It is the space where there is nothing that provides the usefulness of the room. Therefore, what is there is used for its utility, but what is not there is used for its function.
Literal meaning.
Thank you. Wow. Even just hearing it read. It's so simple, right?
Yeah.
These incredibly concrete, everyday examples.
Exactly. Drawn straight from the world Lao Tzu lived in, things everyone would recognize. But these simple images hold a really profound truth.
So let's unpack them a bit. Let's start with the cartwheel.
Okay, the wheel. When you look at it, your eye naturally goes to the solid bits, right? The rim, the spokes, the something.
The structure?
The structure, yes. But what actually makes the wheel work? What allows the cart to move?
It has to be the hole in the middle, the hub.
Precisely. It's the empty space at the center, the hub. That hollow space is where the axle fits. It connects the wheel to the cart. Without that void, that fundamental nothing.
The spokes are just sticks.
Exactly. Just a collection of wood, totally useless for movement. And here's what's really fascinating. That empty hub, that space, it can't be worn down by use.
Because it's nothing.
Because it's nothing. Its non-materiality is what allows it to continuously enable the movement. It's the part that isn't consumed, allowing all the other parts to function and wear down.
Wow, okay. The absence allows the presence to work.
You got it. And then think about the pot.
Right, the clay pot.
We value it for its material, maybe its shape, how strong it is, the decoration perhaps, the tangible stuff.
Sure.
But what's its actual purpose? Why do we have a pot?
To hold things. Water, grain, food.
And where does it hold them?
In the empty part inside.
Exactly. Its function relies entirely on its hollow, empty center, that empty middle. You can think of it like a valley in the landscape.
Okay, I like that analogy.
It can receive and hold anything, right? From the most basic stuff to the most precious liquids. And the space itself is never really used up.
It just gets filled and emptied.
It gets filled, emptied, maybe cleaned, and it's instantly ready again, continuously refreshed. Its usefulness, its capacity to hold, is defined entirely by its emptiness, not by the solid walls around it.
Okay, wheel, pot, and then the room. This one seems almost obvious once you state it.
It does, doesn't it? We build the walls, the roof, the floor. That's the something, the structure we create.
But we don't live in the walls.
Exactly. The actual living space, the shelter, the comfort, the whole point of the room that comes from the empty space inside.
Without the void, it's just a solid block of material. Useless as a room.
Totally useless as a room. And how do we even get into that vital empty space?
Through doors and windows.
Right. Which are essentially holes, intentional absences cut into the solid walls.
Just empty spaces framed by wood or whatever.
And think about it, those mere holes, as Lao Tzu might imply, they're never exhausted by use, are they?
No, you can walk through a doorway millions of times. The opening is still there.
It remains functional, continuously serving its purpose, precisely because it is empty.
Okay, so the pattern is becoming really clear.
Yes. The core principle here is simple on the surface, but incredibly deep. The something, the spokes, the clay, the walls, that provides the structure, the utility. It's what's tangible, what is there.
Got it.
But the nothing, the empty hub, the hollow center, the space in the room, the openings, that provides the essential function. It's what is not there, the intangible.
Utility versus function. That's the key phrase from the end of the chapter.
It is. Therefore, what is there is used for its utility, but what is not there is used for its function. The utility of what is depends entirely on the function of what is not. Presence serves its purpose because of absence.
That really flips our usual way of thinking on its head. We focus so much on the what is there.
We do, and this isn't just about physical objects. This pattern, this idea of function arising from emptiness, it's woven deeply into Taoist thought. It goes way beyond these examples.
How so?
Well, the imagery here, especially the pot, or maybe even the hub as a receptive center, connects beautifully with concepts like the spirit of the valley you find in other chapters, like chapter 6.
Not the valley. Low receptive.
Exactly. The valley is seen as this untiring source of life, endlessly productive precisely because it's low and empty. It can receive everything, rain, rivers, seeds. Its receptive emptiness makes it fertile.
So emptiness isn't passive, it's generative.
Very much so. Think of other Taoist images like bellows, empty inside but creating powerful airflow, or the wheel's hub, again, an untiring center of movement. Why? Because their essential quality is emptiness. They're never full in a static sense.
So they're never depleted. Always ready.
Always ready to facilitate new action, hold new contents, allow flow. It's a dynamic emptiness.
Digging into the core wisdom.
Okay, so you've got the literal meaning down. The wheel, the pot, the room, the function comes from the nothingness. Now let's peel back those layers, like you said, and really dig into the deeper wisdom here. Let's explore, say, 3 key questions to unlock what this means for us.
Sounds good. Where should we start?
Well, the first big one seems to be, what is the relationship here between something and nothing? Is Lao Tzu just saying, nothing is better? Should we all just aim for less stuff, less structure? Is emptiness the goal in itself?
Yeah, that's a really natural first thought, isn't it? Especially because we tend to think in opposites, good, bad, presence, absence. But no, it's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
Scholar Liu Xiaogan offers a useful perspective here. He suggests Lao Tzu isn't just setting up a simple preference, saying emptiness trumps presence. It's more like a corrective.
A corrective? How do you mean?
Like a recalibration for our usual way of thinking. We humans, we tend to have this deep-seated bias, right? We value what we can see, touch, measure the tangible something.
The stuff we can count, the achievements we can list.
Exactly. Lao Tzu is stepping in to challenge that bias. He's nudging us, saying, hey, don't forget the invisible part. Don't overlook the nothing that makes the something work.
So it's about bringing our attention to the neglected part of the equation.
Precisely. Liu Xiaogan calls it a heuristic corrective, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a mental tool, a strategy Lao Tzu uses to help us see things differently, to recognize the value in what we usually ignore.
Like flipping the lens.
Yeah, it's a kind of reversal, which is a core Taoist practice, actually. Yeah. Encouraging us to adopt the opposite of conventional wisdom, to gain deeper insight, to see value where society tells us there isn't any.
Okay, so it's not about ditching the something, but about achieving balance. Recognizing we need both.
Absolutely. It highlights this crucial interdependence. They're partners. The famous commentator Wang Bi, writing centuries ago, put it brilliantly. He said, roughly translating, the utility of what is there is dependent on what is not there.
Wow. Say that again.
The utility of what is there is dependent on what is not there.
That's huge. It means existence, the useful things, actually rely on non-existence, on emptiness, to even be useful.
Exactly. Think of the door frame again. Its utility depends entirely on the empty space it defines. And another scholar, Tzu, hammered this home too. He said something like, without something, nothing has no way to fulfill its function. Without nothing, something has no way to provide its utility.
So they literally enable each other. You can't have one without the other if you want things to actually work.
They're inseparable partners in making things effective. Not opposites fighting, but a dynamic duo.
Okay, I'm seeing the partnership now. It's not just about physical things either, is it? This interdependence.
No, it connects right into the broader Taoist view of the cosmos. Remember chapter 2 of the Tao Te Ching? It says that determinacy, yu meaning presence or something, and indeterminacy, wu meaning absence or nothing, give rise to each other.
Ah, right, like other pairs. Difficult and easy, long and short.
Exactly. High and low, beautiful and ugly, even complex musical notes and simple, raw sounds, they all define each other. They co-arise. Presence and non-presence aren't separate forces. They're complementary aspects of the same underlying reality, the Tao. The Tao itself is seen as this structure of possibility, how things naturally unfold, entangling everything. Presence and non-presence are just fundamental to that cosmic process.
Okay, that makes sense. They need each other. But here's another thought. Is Lao Tzu giving us pure philosophy here? Like, this is how reality is, or is it more tactical? A kind of clever strategy for living or governing, a means to an end.
That's a fantastic question, and yeah, it's something thinkers have grappled with. Is it ontology or strategy? Wang Fuzi, another influential commentator, actually questioned Lao Tzu's strong emphasis on nothing. He sort of wondered if it was maybe too clever, a strategic move rather than just a statement of fact.
So was Lao Tzu describing reality or telling us how to act to get a certain result?
That's the core of Wang Fuzi's query. He often argued against separating yin and yang too rigidly, seeing them in constant interplay, maybe even struggle. So he questioned if achieving a state of pure nothingness was even the real goal, or if emphasizing it was just a very effective way to, say, calm society down or cultivate personal stillness. Is it the ultimate truth or a useful tool?
Which ties back to that heuristic corrective idea.
It does. Chad Hansen's interpretation leans that way too. He suggests Taoist skepticism isn't always about language failing to capture the Tao entirely, but more about how conventions, our shared assumptions and ways of talking, become rigid and limit us.
Ah, so language isn't the problem, but how we use it, how we get stuck in conventional thinking.
Right. So emphasizing nothing becomes that mental tool, again, that corrective, to shake up our assumptions about what has value. It's that reversal exercise. Value what convention ignores and you'll gain insight. It's about realizing that fixed rules or guidelines based on rigid forms might not be reliable if reality itself is fluid. It's a pragmatic way to navigate a world that's constantly changing.
So it's both, maybe. A philosophical insight and a practical, almost subversive strategy for thinking and acting differently to get better results, especially in the long run. Valuing the unseen power.
I think that's a good way to look at it. It operates on multiple levels.
Okay, let's move to our second big question then. Lao Tzu uses these very physical examples, the cart, the pot, the room, very tangible. But does this idea of nothing stop there? Is it only about physical space, or does it go deeper?
Oh, it goes much, much deeper. While the physical examples are the starting point, the concept of nothing, or emptiness, in chapter 11, resonates far beyond just tangible voids. It reaches right into the mind, the spirit, even into how societies function best.
Okay, so how does it apply to, say, the mind?
Well, the Zen master Hanshin King had a really insightful take. He saw this nothing as representing the empty spiritual mind-heart.
Empty spiritual mind-heart. Okay.
In his view, our physical body, that's the something, our tangible form, our presence, but our clear consciousness, that open, receptive state of mind, that's the functional nothing.
The space within.
Exactly. The mental space where real understanding, intuition, and effective spontaneous action can actually arise. It's the clarity that lets us see things without the filter of our biases and preconceived ideas.
That's powerful. So our minds aren't just processors full of data. They need that empty space to function properly. Like the pot needs to be empty to hold something new.
Precisely. And we need to understand the Chinese concept of Vixen here. It's often translated as heart-mind.
Right, not just mind, but heart, too.
Yes, and in early Chinese thought, Tixin isn't just the physical organ. It's seen as this dynamic system of both thinking and feeling. It's about a more immediate, unmediated way of perceiving and responding to the world.
Integrated thinking and feeling.
Exactly. So when the Tao Te Ching talks about wuxin, which literally means no heart mind, it's not suggesting being mindless or emotionless.
No. What does it mean then?
It means something more like unmediated thinking and feeling, operating without imposing your own ego, your own fixed judgments. The sage, operating with wuxin, embodies this, by taking the thoughts and feelings of the common people as their own.
Not imposing their own agenda.
Right. They become receptive. It actually suggests that the people themselves are the immediate source of social order, and the sage's empty heart mind becomes a reflection or maybe a facilitator of that natural flourishing, rather than the primary driver dictating everything. The wise ruler creates the space for the community's own order to emerge.
Wow. That turns leadership on its head, too. Less command, more creating space.
Very much so. And building on this, Professor Fu Perong sees nothing as the very source of creative possibility.
Creativity.
How he uses the analogy of white space in traditional Chinese landscape painting.
Ah, the unpainted parts of the scroll.
Exactly. That unfilled space isn't just empty background, it's absolutely vital. It's what gives meaning and form to the mountains, the trees, the figures. It lets them breathe, gives them context, suggests mist or distance or infinity.
The something needs the nothing to have impact.
Precisely. That white space is the potential from which everything else emerges. It's the canvas for new ideas.
So that's where novelty comes from, the newness.
That connects perfectly to the Taoist view of novelty itself. In Taoism, the world isn't static, it's seen as constantly renewing itself. There's this idea of the irrepressible presencing of novelty.
Irrepressible presencing of novelty. I like that phrase.
Isn't it great? It means the flow of experience is inherently self-ordering. It's nameless in its deepest sense. We don't impose order on it. Order emerges. As some scholars phrase it, something is always about to happen. The most consummate thus arises out of this absence, this deficiency, this lack.
So emptiness isn't just lack, it's potential, the space for the next thing to happen.
Exactly. It's pure potential, the infinite possibilities that haven't yet solidified into something.
Okay. And how else does nothing manifest beyond the physical?
Scholar Michael Lafargue offers an experiential interpretation. He sees nothing as a kind of subtle, non-coercive influence.
Non-coercive, like wu wei.
Very closely related to wu wei, yes, often translated as non-action or non-doing. But we have to be careful here. Wu wei doesn't mean being lazy or passive.
Right, you clarified that before. It's not inaction.
It's not inaction at all. It's about acting effortlessly, spontaneously, in tune with the natural flow of things, without forcing, without artificiality. It's actually a state of highly effective, vigorous action. But it feels smooth and harmonious because it arises from a place of inner stillness, an unstimulated state of mind.
Like the flow state athletes talk about.
That's a good modern parallel. Think of the Taoist analogy of an infant crying they can go all day without getting hoarse, because their energy comes from this pure, unforced state of harmony. It's strength born from stillness, effective action, born from non-action, from that inner nothingness.
That's incredible, effortless effectiveness.
And this has really practical applications, according to commentators like He Shanggong. Take governance, for example.
How does a ruler use nothing?
A humble, wise ruler embodies nothingness by creating space for the people. They govern with minimal interference, allowing society's natural order to emerge. They trust the process.
Less micromanaging.
Much less. Paradoxically, the sage ruler maintains their influence and prestige, not through flashy displays of power, knowledge, or colorful qualities, but through a kind of lack of personal ego or defined traits.
Like being a blank slate.
Almost. Chapter 17 famously says, "Of the best of all rulers, people will only know that he exists." They're just there, facilitating, like uncarved wood, natural, unshaped, without a specific agenda. They don't represent narrow interests. By being this nothing, they prevent society from fragmenting into self-interested factions and maintain a broader harmony.
They sound almost invisible. The text even calls them shapeless, like a desert or an idiot.
Yes, in chapter 20, those are shocking terms, but they emphasize the ruler's lack of imposing personal characteristics. Their non-presence allows the people's own activity, rooted in the Tao, to flourish.
Okay, that's governance. What about self-cultivation? For the individual.
Same principle applies. An empty spirit, an uncluttered mind allows for bodily harmony. This ties directly into Qi, the vital energy.
Right, the life force.
For our Qi to flow smoothly, rhythmically, harmoniously, We need that internal non-presence, that inner emptiness. Letting go of mental clutter, emotional turmoil.
Clearing the internal pathways.
Exactly. And the goal of this cultivation, it's sometimes described as a kind of paradoxical hedonism.
Paradoxical hedonism. What's that?
It means achieving real, deep contentment in the present moment. Not by constantly adding more pleasures or possessions, but by preventing those insatiable cravings.
The wanting mind.
The wanting mind. Taoism sees those endless cravings not as sins, but as symptoms of discontent. They constantly push our satisfaction into the future, the next purchase, the next hit, the next achievement. It's like addiction, really.
Always chasing, never arriving.
Precisely. By cultivating inner emptiness, by being fully present with what is not, instead of constantly wanting what is not, we break that cycle. We find contentment right here, right now. Nothingness becomes the cure for the endless chase.
That's incredibly relevant for today. Valuing the present nothing over the future. Something. Okay, this is leading perfectly into our third big question. This focus on emptiness, on the unseen, on non-interference. How does it function as a critique of traditional values, especially our modern ones, which seem obsessed with visible stuff, wealth, status, degrees, followers?
That's a powerful critique. Lao Tzu, and Taoism generally, throws down a major challenge to any system that overvalues the tangible, the measurable, the overtly useful by conventional standards. And Zhuangzi especially drives this home with his wonderful stories about uselessness.
Right, you mentioned the gourd and the tree earlier.
Let's revisit them briefly. The gourd story. This guy has a gourd, it's massive, totally impractical for holding water or being a ladle. Useless by normal standards.
Okay.
Zhuangzi says essentially, stop thinking so narrowly. Why not lash it to yourself and use it as a float? Go drift on the rivers and lakes.
So its uselessness for one purpose reveals its unique function for another, totally different purpose.
Exactly. It's about shifting your perspective, refusing to be bound by conventional definitions of utility.
And the gnarled tree.
Same idea.
Yeah.
It's too twisted and knotted for lumber. No carpenter wants it. It's useless for building things.
So it gets left alone.
It gets left alone. It avoids the axe because it's useless by that narrow standard. And what happens? It lives for ages, grows huge, provides shade for countless people and animals, becomes a landmark, a sacred spot perhaps. Its conventional uselessness allows it to achieve a profound, long-term, subtle kind of value and function.
A function that benefits the whole community, not just one carpenter.
Precisely. It highlights Zhuangzi's point that these distinctions we make useless, good, bad, they aren't absolute truths inherent in the world.
Right.
They're often just conventions. What seems useless might have immense hidden value if we just look differently.
And history kind of backs this up, doesn't it? People who seemed useless or out of step by the standards of their time, but ended up changing the world. Lincoln, Einstein.
Absolutely. Think of figures who defied narrow expectations, who didn't fit the mold. Taoism embraces this resistance to fixed, linear thinking, to predictable outcomes. It values the unexpected function that emerges from the overlooked, the nothing.
Yeah.
True impact often comes from unconventional sources.
So how does this critique play out in, say, relationships or ethics?
Well, think about the Taoist idea of deference. It's not about being subservient, but about yielding space, acknowledging the value in others, incorporating their perspectives.
Creating that empty space for them to contribute.
Yes. It's the opposite of a purely competitive mindset, where you only value what's overtly useful to you or what makes you look powerful. Deference allows collective wisdom to emerge.
And what about those other concepts, the woo forms, wooming and woozy?
Right. Wooming, naming without fixed reference, and woozy, unprincipled knowing, or knowing without rigid categories. These directly challenge our reliance on fixed labels and purely intellectual frameworks.
Our need to put everything in a box.
Exactly. Taoism advocates for a more fluid, adaptable understanding, one that embraces the nameless, the ambiguous, the things that don't fit neatly. It critiques our tendency to reify concepts, to treat abstract ideas as if they were concrete, unchanging things. This rigidity can stifle real understanding and block creative solutions in a world that's constantly flowing and changing.
So it's a critique of how we even think and categorize reality.
Deeply so. And Lao Tzu takes it even further, right into the heart of conventional morality.
How so? Morality seems pretty important.
It is, but Lao Tzu's approach is radical. The Taoist sage is often described as morally impartial, maybe even beyond good and evil. Chapter 49 says the sage treats the good person as good, but also treats the not good person as good. Same with truth.
Wait, treats the not good as good. How does that work? Isn't that dangerous?
It sounds shocking, right? But it's not about condoning harmful actions. It's about recognizing that imposing rigid moral judgments, taking sides in moral disputes, often leads to more conflict, more antagonism, and threatens social harmony.
Because defining good automatically creates bad and sets up a fight.
That's the idea. By remaining impartial, by not getting caught up in fixed ideas of who's right and who's wrong, the sage prevents partisan struggle. They maintain a kind of cosmic balance by holding the empty space for all perspectives without endorsing harmful behavior itself.
That's a very different approach than, say, Confucianism, which emphasizes cultivating specific virtues and feelings.
Very different. Confucianism often links virtue to cultivating innate moral sprouts or feelings. Lao Tzu, by contrast, often associates the Taoist ideal with an absence of emotional excitement, a calm centeredness that isn't swayed by the emotional charge of conventional good versus evil thinking.
And this critique extends even to things like ritual.
Absolutely. Chapter 38 delivers a powerful blow. Ritual propriety, it says, is the thinnest veneer of doing one's best, and it is the first sign of trouble.
Wow. Ritual as the start of trouble.
Yes, because it can become superficial, a substitute for genuine feeling or connection. The chapter also says, foreknowledge, claiming to know the future or having all the answers, is tinsel decorating the way, and is the first sign of ignorance.
So outward shows, predicting everything, that's seen as shallow.
It challenges the value we place on external forms, on appearing good, on having credentials, on seeming knowledgeable. It argues that true value, real function, deep effectiveness, it lies in the unseen, the unforced, the spontaneous. It lies in the nothing that enables genuine connection and flow, not in the elaborate something we construct on the surface. It's a call to look beneath the veneer.
The Tao in modern life.
Okay, this is all fascinating looking back at the ancient texts and commentaries, but it feels so countercultural, especially now. Our world's all about more, faster, louder, visible. So how does this ancient wisdom, this Taoist valuing of emptiness, actually apply to us today in our crazy, busy modern lives?
You're right, it does seem countercultural, but I think that's exactly why it's so relevant. It offers an antidote, and it applies in some really practical, everyday ways.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, let's start with something simple. Communication. Think about truly great speakers you've heard. Maybe someone like Martin Luther King Jr., you mentioned him earlier.
Yeah, powerful orator.
Absolutely. But his power wasn't just in the words themselves, the something. A huge part of his impact came from the pauses.
The silence between the words.
Exactly. Those moments of nothing, the deliberate silences, the measured breaths, that's what gave his words weight, resonance. It allowed them to land.
He let the audience absorb it, feel it.
Precisely. Those pauses created space for reflection, built anticipation, let the audience connect emotionally. Without that emptiness, it would have just been a relentless barrage of sound. The nothing amplified the something.
That makes perfect sense. We often feel we have to fill every silence in conversation, don't we?
We do. But sometimes that silence is where the real understanding happens. It connects back to that Taoist idea of timeliness, too. Knowing when to speak and when to be silent. The sage ruler's goodness lies in timeliness. A speaker needs that too, the power of well-timed nothingness.
Okay, communication. What else?
How about the whole modern phenomenon of minimalism?
Decluttering, KonMari, tiny houses.
Exactly. When people consciously get rid of excess stuff, it's not just about having a tidier house, is it?
No, it feels deeper than that, more peaceful.
Right. It's about intentionally creating nothingness, creating empty physical space, sure, but also empty mental space. That emptiness fosters peace, gives you back time, creates clarity.
And nothing enhances the something that's left, makes it more valuable.
Perfectly put. Think about a clear desk versus a cluttered one. Or deleting unused apps off your phone. It's not just about storage, it's reducing the visual noise, the mental clutter, the notification fatigue. It creates space for focus.
That internal emptiness we talked about earlier.
Exactly. It relates directly to those Taoist states of mind. Stillness, clarity, not desiring, not doing in the wu-wei sense. Cultivating this inner emptiness allows that inexhaustible energy and harmony to emerge. It's the opposite of that frantic busyness we started with. It allows for that smooth, effective action born from stillness.
Okay, communication, minimalism. Any other surprising connections?
Here's a really interesting one, I think. Consider the structure of the Lao Tzu itself, the Tao Te Ching.
How it's written.
Yeah. It's not really a linear argument, is it? It doesn't build a case step by step like a Western philosophical treatise.
No, it feels more like poetic fragments, images, recurring themes.
Exactly. Some scholars actually describe it as an ancient form of hypertext.
Hypertext, like on the internet.
Kind of. Think about it. It has this open structure. Images and ideas connect across different chapters in ways that aren't always obvious, creating nearly inexhaustible possibilities for intertextual linkages.
So you can jump around, follow connections.
Yes. There's no single starting point, no absolute priority given to one image or chapter. You could practically start anywhere and find meaning and coherence. It's full of interpretive white space between the concepts.
Wow, so the book itself embodies the principle. The gaps, the nothing, allow for connections and meaning.
I think that's a fascinating way to see it. This non-linear structure, valuing the space between ideas, actually mirrors how we often navigate information today, doesn't it? Clicking links, jumping between topics. It challenges us to think flexibly, connectively, rather than demanding rigid, full, closed systems of knowledge. Find meaning in the gaps.
That's mind-blowing. The Tao Te Ching as ancient hypertext.
And you can even extend that parallel to modern digital communication more broadly.
How so?
Think about the internet. The use of pseudonyms, specialized codes, or jargon within communities, often distributed or even anonymous authorship. It's hard to pin down a single author or a single linear argument for many online phenomena.
Right, things just emerge, spread.
Exactly. It aligns with the less individualistic, less humanist perspectives sometimes found in Taoism, where individual agency isn't the be-all and end-all. Instead, you see collective, self-organizing discourses emerging. The nothingness of a single identifiable author or a strict linear structure actually allows these complex emergent systems to flourish. The distributed network, the lack of a central controller. It echoes that Taoist appreciation for the power of the uncentered, the empty spaces that enable dynamic growth.
This chapter's practice.
This has been incredibly rich. We've gone from ancient wheels and pots all the way to the structure of the internet, all through the lens of nothingness. Okay, so for everyone listening, how do we bring this home? How can we actually practice this wisdom this week? How do we consciously create some useful nothingness in our own lives?
Right, because understanding is one thing, but embodying it is where the real transformation happens. So here are 3 practical things you could try this week. Little experiments in emptiness.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, your schedule. Find just 30 minutes somewhere in your week. Block it out on your calendar. Label it nothing time if you want.
Okay, schedule 30 minutes of nothing. Then what?
Here's the crucial part. Do not fill it. Don't plan an activity for it. Don't decide you'll meditate or read or catch up on emails. Don't even pick up your phone if you can help it.
Just sit with the emptiness.
Just sit with it. Be in that unstructured, unprogrammed space. See what happens, what thoughts come up, what feelings, what ideas might surface when you're not actively trying to do something.
That sounds potentially uncomfortable, but interesting.
It can be. But it's a direct way to cultivate that empty spiritual mind heart we talked about. It's an invitation for intuition, for that unprincipled knowing, to bubble up when you're receptive instead of directive. You might be surprised by the clarity that comes from simply allowing space.
Okay, practice 1. Schedule nothing. What's next?
Second, your environment. Pick one surface in your home or office that tends to get cluttered. A desk, a countertop, maybe a shelf.
Easy to find one of those.
Right. Now commit to clearing just 1/3 of that surface. Not shuffling stuff around, but actually clearing it. Put things away properly, donate them, recycle them. Create a visible patch of empty space.
Okay, clear 1/3 of a cluttered spot.
And then take a moment to actually experience that cleared space. Notice the feeling of openness, the clarity. This is chapter 11 made tangible. That cleared space isn't useless. It's suddenly highly functional. It might invite you to organize the rest or simply give your eyes and mind a place to rest. It shows how undoing enables function and peace.
I like that. A small, visible change. Okay, 3rd practice.
Third, your conversations. This week, make a conscious effort in at least a few interactions to listen more than you speak.
Listen more. Seems simple, but maybe isn't.
It takes intention. Really focus on creating space for the other person's thoughts. Let them finish completely. Resist the urge to jump in, to plan your reply while they're still talking, or to fill every little pause.
Hold back the impulse to immediately add your 2 cents.
Exactly. Allow those moments of quiet. This directly practices that Taoist deference, yielding space, acknowledging their contribution, letting their something fill the nothing you're creating by listening deeply. It's like being the sage who takes the mind of the 100 clans as their own, being receptive, impartial. You might find the conversation deepens and you understand more simply by creating that empty space for the other person.
Schedule nothing, clear some space, listen more. Those are really powerful, accessible ways to start valuing emptiness.
They are small shifts that can open up surprising perspectives.
It really brings it all together, doesn't it? Lao Tzu's core teaching here is urging us to value emptiness, the negative space, the quiet moments, the pauses, the cleared surfaces, the receptive mind, because it's precisely this nothing, the thing we usually ignore or try to fill, that provides the essential function, the very possibility for everything else to work.
It's the invisible foundation.
It really is. In our homes, in our schedules, in our minds, in our relationships, embracing nothing isn't about lack. It's about unlocking potential. It gives us room to breathe, to think, to connect, to create, to simply be.
Finding power in the void.
Exactly. So as you go about your week, maybe keep that question in mind. Where could a little more nothing bring unexpected clarity or usefulness into your world? It's something to ponder. Join us next time as we dive into Chapter 12. Lao Tzu issues a warning there that the 5 colors, the 5 sounds, the 5 flavors, things we normally think of as beautiful and pleasurable, can actually blind us, deafen us, and dull our taste.
How can beauty and pleasure deceive us?
Yeah.
How can they become traps?
That's the fascinating question we'll explore in our next deep dive. See you then.